Before I get into this fully, I just want to say that I think that Aidan Hutchinson will go before Thibodeaux. I think NFL guys will like him more. If you go look at the scouting reports that Lance Zierlein just posted on NFL.com and look at the little blurb from NFL personnel, they seem to be pretty low on Thibodeaux. So I think Aidan Hutchinson will go before Thibodeaux, but that doesn't necessarily mean one is better than the other. That's just how I'm seeing it play out in real life. Now, who do I think is better? Watch this video and find out. Let's start off by talking about Aidan Hutchinson. He's right here, and the first thing that stands out to me about him is his size. I mean, you look at Ojabo over here, right? That's someone who's projected to get taken pretty high in the first round as well as an outside linebacker. And he's a big outside linebacker. We're talking about someone who's 6'5", 249 pounds, pretty big. And then you got Hutchinson out here being an inch taller, outweighing him by 15 pounds. He's just massive. He's got the body type you'd expect to see, over here, like as a 4-eye tech or a 3 tech or something in a 3-point stance. Nope, he's huge and he's coming off the edge as like a 9 tech way out in a 2-point stance. And let's take a look at his first couple steps. I would say that they are good. I think his burst off the line of scrimmage, off the snap, is good. It's not quite unbelievable or that looks fake like maybe Von Millers of the world or the Myles Garretts of the world have, but it's good. And considering how big he is, it's a problem because he converts that speed to power really well. Here you're going to see him bull rush that left tackle or that right tackle, I guess. And this combination of size and speed is going to translate to the NFL. All right. You're the Lions. You see him doing this. You're thinking about drafting him. You picture this right tackle as the Bears right tackle. I'm not so sure that he's locking that up. All right. Average NFL tackles are going to have problems with his size and his speed. It's going to translate. And I think his baseline is a good player. I really think that he's going to be good. The other thing that really impresses me about Hutchinson, who's lined up on the left side there, is how he fights with his hands, right? All right. When he wins around the edge, he tends to do it with hand fighting. Here, the tackle is going to shoot his hands, and Hutchinson is going to meet them perfectly at the point of attack, be able to swipe them away, then rip, and he's able to beat the tackle outside. Now, it's not a sack because the quarterback gets the ball out quickly, but this is still really good hand fighting, a really good swipe and rip by Hutchinson to win outside. And this is a really important trait for Hutchinson to have because the dude has short arms. And guys with longer arms can hold offensive tackles at bay just by really extending, and they have more room for error. Hutchinson doesn't really have the luxury of being able to just extend into a tackle and them not being able to reach him or do anything against him. They always can. So it's important for him to always be able to maneuver those hands and be able to do these swipe moves and time these up right. Here he's going to do it again. Look at the right tackle, set, shoot his hands, and Hutchinson just swipes them away and is able to get him out of position and win around the outside like that. Here's one more example from this game. Once again, Hutchinson is going to attack that outside shoulder of the right tackle, and when that tackle shoots his hand, Hutchinson catches both of them like a double high five, and you got to be really coordinated to aim and catch both of those when they're fired at you that fast. And this is a really bad position to be in as a tackle, right? Nothing's in his frame. The edge rusher is determining where his hands are going. Then he's just going to pull him down, dip that shoulder a little bit, beat that tackle, deal with the chip, and clean up and get half a sack here. I think this is one of the best examples of everything that Aidan Hutchinson brings to the table and why his appeal is what it is this play right here against Rutgers. Rutgers is going to run counter right. They're going to bring this tight end. They're going to bring this guard, and then they're going to look like they're running towards the run strength, but then cut it back and follow those two. It's counter. And they've got a tackle to block Hutchinson here. I mean, they've got a guy on him, and they might as well not. They might as well not. And there's no way a guy that big should have that much lateral foot quickness and be able to move that quickly laterally. You just don't see it very often. And you see the hands, right? Perfectly in sync with his cut inside, is able to bat away those hands with his right hand and then get the arm over and keep moving as if nothing happened, as if nothing was inhibiting him. And I get that this is Rutgers, and Rutgers tackles are probably not the greatest thing in the world, but I don't care. This is still just a sick play by Aidan Hutchinson. I do think Hutchinson has a weakness, though, and that is his bend around the corner. And before I show you what it looks like in Hutchinson, I want to show you what really good bend looks like, featuring Von Miller a couple years ago on the Broncos, probably the best edge rushing linebacker that I have ever seen. And, you know, he gets up the field quickly, right? Threatens that outside shoulder immediately. And ideally, what a tackle is going to do when a edge rusher does that is just push him so far upfield that it doesn't matter, and he overshoots the target a little bit. So that's what Humphries is going to try to do, is push him. But Von Miller just like dodges it, right? He's at like a 90-degree angle. His legs are almost parallel with the ground. His upper body is still pointed at the quarterback. You see the ankle flex as it hits the ground. He doesn't like snap his ankle here. And that is like the best example of bend that I can possibly show you. And you don't need to be that good to be an elite pass rusher, but like that is what bend is. And that's it being done at a really high level. And the last time we saw a pass rusher getting first overall type of hype, it was Myles Garrett. And it didn't take me very long to find this play of his bend coming around the edge right here. He's going to dip that shoulder, try to beat him around the outside. And when that tackle tries to push him outside, farther outside, so he misses his target, you see that disconnect between the upper and lower body. You see that ankle hit the ground at a severe angle, and he doesn't lose his balance, and he's able to run that arc, and he's able to not get a sack here, but get his hands on the quarterback, pressure the quarterback a little bit. It would have mattered more if the quarterback's first read wasn't wide open and he could get the ball out quickly like that. But that's what, you know, you may expect to see from a first overall pick type of player if you're going to go in the edge rusher direction. I do not see that same type of bend in Aidan Hutchinson, who's lined up on the left side of the screen now. He's going to attack that outside shoulder again, and he's going to try to swipe those hands, but this time he shoots him a little bit early, and the tackle gets hands on him. Now, right here, he's got a decent shot still to run this arc and beat him to the outside, but what needs to happen is the legs need to stay pointed that way, and his torso needs to absorb the blow and the push from the lineman here. But that doesn't really happen with him. You don't see the disconnect between the upper and lower half. When the tackle picks up that upper half, the entire lower half comes with it, and all of a sudden he is upright and he is overshooting his target. I think this is another decent example of it against Wisconsin. He's really going to threaten that tackle with a bull rush right away, taking steps directly at him, prevents that tackle from getting any depth in his set, but then he is going to try to go outside and win around the edge. And I think you'd kind of expect to see that shoulder to dip, the upper and lower body to kind of disconnect here, those legs to kick out, and as he runs the arc, but you never really see that. He stays upright kind of the whole time and ends up just trying to go through him again anyway, which is what the original like fake out plan was, but you don't really see him bend and win around the edge. At least it's not something I noticed a whole lot on film, and it's something that I think you don't need to have to be a productive edge rusher. I think he's going to be a productive edge rusher, but for someone who might be going number one overall, it's something I'd like to see a little bit more than he has. Here's my bottom line on him. I think that he has a high floor. I think someone who can convert speed to power like he can. I showed the bull rush. I think someone who has the good technique with his hands. I think someone who is smart, someone who is good at defending the run, is going to be able to step into a NFL defensive line room and make a really solid contribution right away. I really don't see him busting. I think that he's going to be, at the very least, fine. Do I see, however, the pass rushing potential that Myles Garrett had when he was coming out of Texas A&M that made him the number one overall pick? No. I think of Aidan Hutchinson as like a top 10 overall pick. I feel comfortable taking him at I feel very comfortable taking him at 8 if I was the Falcons. If it was 8 and he was there, perfect. That's a great pick. Number 1 or number 2, I start to feel a little bit dicey about it, but he's still a really good prospect. But how do I feel about Kayvon Thibodeaux? We'll get into that right now. Although they basically play the same position, Kayvon Thibodeaux and Aidan Hutchinson are very different players. Here's Thibodeaux right there, number 5. And you just start by looking at the body type, and it's pretty clear that Thibodeaux is substantially thinner than Hutchinson is, especially in the waist. He's listed as 10 pounds lighter. But the thing about Thibodeaux is even though he's smaller, he has longer arms, and you can see that show up here, right? When he extends into the frame of this tackle, there's nothing the tackle can do. because his arms are shorter than Thibodeaux's arms, so he can't get into the frame and do anything, and that is a very valuable asset for a pass rusher or a defensive end or a lineman to have. And then once that lineman is kind of flailing, Thibodeaux is able to kind of rip around him, be in a position to make a play on this running back, but it looks like he gets held a little bit there after he beats him, and he's not able to make a play on the box score, but I think that this does a good job exhibiting the length that he has and how he's able to kind of extend and keep these linemen at bay. The other thing I think Thibodeaux at the top of the defensive line here is really good at is explosiveness and speed off the line of scrimmage. And I talked about it with Hutchinson. I think it's very good. I think it's above average. It's really impressive, especially considering his size. But I think Thibodeaux's got that like holy shit speed that doesn't quite look real sometimes. And here you're going to see him beat the tackle before the tackle even gets a chance to set in like 2 strides. Thibodeaux is going to have him beat because of how fast he is off the line of scrimmage, and there it is. No move, nothing fancy, just pure speed off the line of scrimmage allows him to beat this tackle and get a pressure, not a sack, but this turns into an incompletion, and that is a level of explosiveness that is rare. I don't think Hutchinson has it quite to that degree, and I think Thibodeaux does, and I think that's a very valuable trait to have when you can just win really efficiently like that. How does the bend look at the top here? It's not like Von Miller levels. I don't think it's Myles Garrett level with him, but you do see him run that arc. You do see the ankles stay flexible, running at a pretty severe angle there. You do see the upper body absorbing that contact while the lower body stays in line and aims towards the quarterback, and he's able to win there. And yeah, I think his flexibility and his bend is okay. I don't think it's like super great, but I think it's pretty good. And then sticking with this USC game, let's check out his speed to power because he comes off the line of scrimmage so fast. He's got those long arms. He plays with good pad level. He's a taller dude, but he knows how to get underneath you and lift you up, right? And he just dog walks this tackle right back into the quarterback. It's like he's made out of feathers. We got 100 kilograms of feathers here versus 100 kilograms of steel. That's what we're going up against here. And it's just not close. And I think it's worth mentioning that in this game, he's a sophomore. He had just turned 20, and he was the #1 recruit in the nation, and he's just been a pass rushing prodigy kind of this whole time. Again, here he is on the left side of the screen making a Power 5 tackle, albeit a Pac-12 tackle, but still look like he weighs nothing. And I'm sorry, the field goal post is in the way, but I think you can see when he engages with that tackle, he may as well not even be there, right? He just gets blown straight back. Very little resistance here. The quarterback does a nice job stepping up, but this is a pressure by Thibodeaux and should have forced this quarterback into just a short little gain, but he does a nice job stiff-arming that linebacker and picking up a pretty nice gain. Here's another decent example of his flexibility. This is actually a running play, so maybe this isn't the best example to use, but he's getting really far upfield and almost treating this like a pass rush, and that might be a problem, but I think it is a good pass rushing rep, right? He shows that patented explosiveness and plays with good pad level consistently. Good leverage pointing up into the pads of this tackle. And then the tackle tries to throw him down, turn him out, and he absorbs that throw downwards with his upper body, right? He leans at the waist, absorbs that push, keeps his legs pointed towards his target, keeps them churning, and he's able to beat this tackle and would be in a position to hunt down this quarterback if it wasn't a running play. And maybe he should have contained a little bit more instead of getting so far upfield. And you can mark that down as a flaw for him there. But I think it does show his potential as a pass rusher a little bit, as ironic as that may be. And I think both Hutchinson and Thibodeaux are good against the run. Obviously there he was a little bit too enthusiastic getting upfield, but he can survive in the trenches, dude. There's a double team, a combo between the tackle and the tight end, and he does not give 1 inch of ground here. And you don't have to beat double teams. You don't have to like split them and make the play. You just have to not lose. You just don't have to get washed out because him taking up both of these guys means no one's climbing and the linebackers can go make a play. Also, one more thing before I move on to some of his weaknesses. I think an underrated part of his game is his ability to drop back into zone coverage. He's legitimately a good enough athlete to survive out there. Here he's going to drop pretty deep, read the quarterback's eyes, get in the passing lane, rise up, and tip this ball just enough that it comes in at a weird angle and it's more difficult for the wide receivers to catch. But he's a good athlete out there, and why I think this is underrated is more and more you see like NFL defenses walk these linebackers up, really create these exotic fronts, and you don't know who's dropping. You know, is the defensive tackle dropping and the linebacker blitzing, or is the linebacker blitzing and the defensive tackle coming? You don't know. But everybody on the front in those looks needs a little bit of chops in zone coverage. And when you have a guy who is so explosive in the pass rushing game, but also can survive out there in zone coverage, I think that's a really valuable piece for any defense who wants to do stuff like that. But here's the problem with Thibodeaux. He does not really have many pass rushing moves. I showed you clips of Hutchinson expertly swiping away the hands of defenders at the attack point and winning in multiple ways and winning with technical skill. Thibodeaux doesn't really do that. He just tries to go right through you every time. He's going to put your hands in your frame and just try to bull rush you. Here, you know, it doesn't work, and then he does a little bit of hand fighting, but it's too late. Going back to the UCLA game, that right tackle is going to get hands on him early, and he just doesn't really have an answer for this. He continues to try to win around the outside. His hands kind of flail around. I don't know if he's calling for a penalty here or what, but I'd like to see him look a little bit more composed in that situation and have a few more answers and a few more counters for stuff like that, but he just doesn't really have those in his arsenal quite yet. That being said, though, I do think it's a little bit unfair to call him a super raw prospect because he does play with a really good pad level. His technique is really good in that area and even a little bit better than Hutchinson. And I like Thibodeaux a little bit more than Hutchinson. I think that Hutchinson has a higher floor. I think that Hutchinson is like 85% of the athlete that Thibodeaux is, maybe even 90% of the athlete that Thibodeaux is, and more technically refined. So he might be better right now. But I do think that Thibodeaux has that little extra edge to him with the long arms, with the explosiveness, and with the bend that puts his ceiling higher. And once he figures out more of these pass rushing moves, I think that he is going to be, or he has the potential to be, one of the most dangerous pass rushing threats in all of the NFL. And despite the monster year that Aidan Hutchinson just had, and despite him being a year older, and despite the technical skill that he holds over Thibodeaux, in my opinion, Thibodeaux still had a higher pressure rate this year, and he's had a higher pressure rate every year. And again, he's the golden boy. He's been that dude since high school, and I think he's still that dude. I think he may need a little bit more time to really put everything together, but I think at the peak of his powers, we're going to see Thibodeaux being better than Hutchinson, especially if he lands in a system like the Giants and Wink Martindale that allows him to get some like free blitzes that will also, you know, taking advantage of his coverage skills a little bit with some simulated pressures. I think if he goes to Wink Martindale on the Giants, you'd really be cooking. You'd really be cooking. This is a quote from Bill Walsh's book called Finding the Winning Edge, and he's talking about evaluating a pass rushing outside linebacker in a 3-4 defense, which is loosely what I would consider both of these players to be. And he describes a player who's a pass rusher first and a run defender second. He prioritizes size, foot speed, and quickness necessary to rough the passer. And he also, you know, he talks about, you know, knowing how to use leverage, knowing how to get underneath a larger man's pads and work back towards the quickness, and being strong enough to bounce off attempted blocks and still make the play. To me, this describes Thibodeaux a little bit more than it describes Hutchinson. And I know Hutchinson might have the body type where he can kick inside. Maybe that's a more natural fit for him. I don't know. But as far as like evaluating them as outside linebackers, the positions they played in college, I do think Thibodeaux projects a little bit better, but who knows? I've been wrong before. But I will say my misses last year came mostly when I was overthinking the technical aspect of it, like Jamar Chase, for example. Still had him as a first-round pick. I think I had him as a top 16 overall player, but I had a couple wide receivers in front of him that I thought were more technically refined. And even though that he was dominating his conference as like a 19-year-old based on athleticism and just dominance at the catch point, I was still like, his release, his route running. And this year I'm going to try to not make that mistake with Thibodeaux and bet on that breakout from a young age and bet on those physical skills. And even though he's kind of dominant at one specific thing, not knocking that and just trusting that he can learn the rest later. So overall, that's my take. Thank you so much for watching. I will be back next week with another All-22 film breakdown. I'll be back with a all underrated team, and of course, more content on TikTok and Twitter always. So thank you for watching. That does it for this week. See you next time.